Hi, it's Janet Fitch, and this is Writing Wednesday. I'm a little late. I was on the way back to LA, and it was too late for my normal noon Writing Wednesday, so I'm coming to you at 3 o'clock, but here. And I do this every Wednesday, generally at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. So if you're interested in checking it out live, you can ask questions live, make comments, whatever interests you, where we talk about writing, the writing life, craft details, literature, whatever comes to mind. And if you send me a question ahead of time, I can design a Writing Wednesday around your question. So feel free to give me comments in the comment box. Happy to answer any questions that you have coming in. And what can I... Oh, and I will be teaching a weekend workshop on point of view. May 13th, 14th, and 15th, a weekend workshop through the Community of Writers, so communityofwriters.org. And there's an early bird discount through to the end of the month, end of April. So April 30th is your last day to get the early bird special. So if you're interested in taking the grand tour of point of view, which is not so much what you write, but the lens through which you're going to shoot, the window through which you're going to see your story. And the limitations of your point of view do shape your story. So it's good to have a little advance idea of what you gain, what you lose, what different points of view work best for. So that you're not making decisions in a vacuum. You're making writing is a lot about control and making decisions rather than just falling into the first thing that comes to the pen or the computer, the first thing that comes into your head, is not necessarily what you're going to want to stick with for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long it takes you to write a book. Short stories, different matter. And usually more experiments are done in the short story. Hey, Ramnik, good to see you. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for tuning in at this odd hour. So today we have questions about the writer's psychology. So I have a question that was sent emailed to me this week that I thought I'd like to address. It's by Ashley. So Ashley, if you're listening, we're going to do yours. I have been writing for as long as I can remember, finally taking it more seriously. Excellent. 3 years ago, hi Jill, 3 years ago, I wrote an absolutely awful novel that doesn't deserve a second draft. Well, we all have those. You have to try it. And the fact that you recognized that it wasn't worth putting any more effort into is a point in your favor. Last year, I finished something that might actually be decent. It makes sense. It has a plot, a lovely theme, all of that. I've gone through a few rounds of self-editing and have sent to a few beta readers, which are not the little fish that attack each other, but are your early readers, friends who actually read. I know like 3 of them. And now I'm terrified. I'm disabled, and focusing on this novel has given a little structure and meaning to my life. Really important. And the thought of people seeing the novel and it maybe sucking is disheartening. Is that something you've ever felt? How do you deal with it? Okay. Have I ever had that worry that people are going to think the book sucks? Every single writer born under the sun, except maybe Vladimir Nabokov, worries that the novel sucks. And now you've gotten good response from your beta readers. So you are able to notice that other people reading it who are not your family and closest friends, are encouraging you. They think it's good. So it looks like that Ashley is done, or is really ready to start doing something with it. I've gone through rounds of self-editing and have sent to the beta readers who have liked it. Now I'm terrified. There's the issue of focusing on the novel has helped giving life structure. Well, isn't that interesting? See, that's one of the reasons that writers hang on to their work and not send it out, is that it gives you a structure. You get up and you know what you're working on. You don't have to start over. You're not starting something. You're entering it and it's already happening. Gives you structure. What happens when you're done with that book? Suddenly you're facing the blank page again. Well, a book is not a crutch. It's not an aid to walking. It's not an aid to anything. It is a work of art. And if you sit there and paint the same painting for 20 years, is it going to be a better painting than it would have been when it was done at 3 years? It's probably going to be a worse painting the longer you work on it after it's done. The more you're going to just mess with it, and you're going to make it longer, you're going to make it shorter, and you're going to decide, oh, maybe I need to have a different point of view character. You're going to think of all the ways in which the book isn't ready to go out, and just distort and distort and distort the book. So what's happening is you're laying on a psychological layer of importance to a book that does not belong in the book. The book's purpose is not to give you something to do when you get up. And I don't mean that you, particularly Ashley, might be doing this, but the people who have trouble letting go of a book because they feel the regularity of life, when they're done with the book, then they have to be back in their life. But that's not the case, because there's going to be another book. If you're a writer, there's going to be another book or short story. You'll start doing stories. A good time to do exercises and short stories is between books. Experiment with a different voice. Experiment with exercises. So don't be afraid that you're going to fall through the cracks or the rope bridge is going to collapse on you because you realize that you're done with your novel. There is more there. And the more you mill around with a book that's already done, it's going to drag the book down. So think of the book rather than yourself and your psychology. Think of what's best for the book. And what's best for the book is to get it out. When you think you're done, and it looks like Ashley has definitely put in the work, the editing and having other people read it, and then keep the structure of your days by, now you're a professional writer and you sit down and you work and you're done with that book, and you go through the process of looking for an agent and all that stuff that everybody else is doing. But start something else. And I don't mean jump into another novel. That's like The Rebound Marriage. Don't do that. Don't do that. But this is the time to start looking at some of the ideas. I keep a book on my desk. When I have ideas, when I'm writing another book, one of the perils of writing is sometimes you get a really good idea while you're in the middle, or especially when you're fairly far into a book and you're into that place where it's just a lot of, pick and shovel stuff. And it's just like the attraction of starting a new book is just, or a new idea, following a new idea is just so tempting, because the new thing is so much more exciting than doing the pick and shovel work on a maybe third draft of something that you've really been working hard on, and it's very familiar now, its problems are very glaring to you, and it's like, I hate to say, it's like being in a marriage and seeing something shiny and exciting going by. That's just like, woo, it's so tempting just to, start that new thing and see if it's more fun than what you're working on. What I do is I have this blue book, and I just know, because it's blue, I know what it is. And these are all writing ideas that I've had. These are all ideas that I've had while I was working on something, on the Revolution of Marina M and Chimes of Lost Cathedral. These are other ideas I had for great stuff. Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be much more fun? Oh my goodness. Wow. That is a wonderful idea, Yay. These are all ideas. If I had started to follow my ideas while I was working on another book, I would have been deeply in trouble, because then you quit working on the book that you're working on, and then you start something else, and then there's a place where that's hard work, as if anybody who's married, there'll be a time in the marriage where it settles in. Not in a bad way necessarily, but sometimes there's a little bit of a difficulty. And something else comes along, and it's like, wouldn't that be interesting? But you get involved with that person, and the time will come where the same thing will happen. That you just can't be running after rabbits while you're working on a big project. So get a book like this, and when you have a really good idea, just a little shred of an idea, you put it in there, and then keep working on the book you're working on. Like, here's one I had. Idea of woman. Hired as assistant. Shows up. The woman has died. Job is to go through her stuff and learning about her through her stuff. And this was based on somebody I know. I could have tossed down that Russian book, 8 years, 10 years worth of work, and gone after this idea. But I'm not going to do that, because I know how much time and effort every book takes. So why would I put something that's a major investment in time and effort, and something that's very much, exists, it already exists, and set that aside to do something like this? That's not the way it works. You finish the book that you're working on. You try to get it out of your office, at least by querying agents. Get it into the in-process file, And then do exercises. Or that's the time to take out your book that was full of ideas that you had while you were working on the larger book, and start doing like a little short, 2 pages. Workup of an idea. Try to see what it's like to write that, a little bit of that, or write an exercise. Use the structure that you've already gotten, because the question was, how do I am reluctant to let go of the book because it provides structure to my life. Well, think of it more that your writing provides the structure, and the book is something you created. Don't keep creating and recreating the same book, letting it morph, and that you're going to kill the book. That's how you're going to do it. That's how many, many writers do, is they kill the book by rewriting, and it just changes it for the different. It's not better. It's not improving the book in any way. It's just changing it. And when you start making big changes, when it's done, you're using the book to do something for yourself psychologically, which is not what the book is for. So get the book out of there, and use the regularity that you've established to do things that don't scare you. So things like do an exercise. Take one of your little ideas from that you've had and try a short, 2 pages, double-spaced. Try really short. And just see what it feels like. See if you can make a full story out of that idea. A 12 to 24 page story. See if you can write a story out of it. Think of if you send a book out, or you're sending books, you're querying agents for your book. Think about writing 10 short stories in this next little period. Just to keep the structure of your writing life, keep the structure of your days, but produce something new. It starts to generate confidence in yourself as a writer, able to produce more than the book that you just finished. So here, Ashley has gone through a few rounds of self-editing, sent out to beta readers, and now is terrified. Focusing on this novel has given some structure and meaning to my life. Yeah, it does. It does. When I'm not writing, I lose it too. And if you have, stress, illness, disability, any kind of that kind of uncertainty, and you have the regularity of writing, really, really helps. Just don't implode the regularity, but do something else with that time. Just like clocking in at work. Okay, you're not working on that book anymore. The project's going out the door. Pick something else. And I don't mean pick another novel. Just pick work and keep the momentum going. She says, and worried about the thought of people seeing the novel and it sucking is disheartening. Yeah, every writer worries about a book that they've been living in for 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 years, that they finally gotten to the place where they think it's pretty good, where their beta readers think it's pretty good, enjoyed it. And then you think, oh, but people are going to see it. Well, people are going to see it, it's better than people not seeing it. If you've spent 3, 5, 8 years on it, you do want people to see it. People are going to see it. Some people are not going to like it. Some people don't like chocolate. You can't believe how many people have disliked the books that I've turned out as well as like them. Some people think that lyrical language that I use, they find it too, in a pejorative way. People say, oh, that's, this language is too flowery, meaning metaphorical language, the lyrical cadences and stuff. They just don't care for it. They want something more staccato. They want something less internal, maybe more action driven. Not everybody likes the same things. It's lucky, some people, all they want to do is read Jane Austen. I can't imagine. For myself, I'd rather, walk across hot coals every day than have to read Jane Austen continuously. But luckily, there's a whole huge world out there of readers who, people are, you always get this kind of bullshit thing where people feel like, why, oh, people don't read anymore. People still read. People continue to read. People are writing and reading like never before. And there's so many people in the world that even if only 10% of people read for pleasure anymore, I don't know what the figure is. I don't follow stats like that, but say there's so many people in the world that 10% is a lot of people. 0.1% is a lot of people. And of those people, there's some people who don't like chocolate. I don't like coconut. I don't want anything with coconut in it. I don't like coconut oil. I don't like coconut lotion. I don't want coconut anything about it. And that's a literary metaphor. I mean, there are writers who are coconut, and I just don't want to see that writing. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It just means it's not to my taste. So you're going to face that. You're going to face people who don't like what you're doing. You're going to face people who think this is a problem, that's a problem, blah, blah, blah. But there's no such thing as perfection in the physical world. And that's the hill I'm going to live and die on. There's no such thing as perfection in the physical world. Anything that exists in reality is going to be flawed. So that a real novel that you wrote and send out into the world is necessarily going to be flawed. So if you feel like you're an imposter, if you send out something that's not perfect in every way, then you're saying that you must have perfection. And as there is no such thing as perfection in the physical world, then you cannot have a novel, ever. Because there's always going to be something wrong with it. And there's always going to be people who aren't going to like it. I know in Native American culture, you purposely create a flaw in your work. Like if you're making a rug or a basket or something, you purposely make a flaw in it. And I think it's more, that to show humility, that we're not gods, and human labor is going to have a flaw in it, and they purposely put a flaw in it. Which is interesting because there's a lot of Greek mythology having to do with artists who hubristically, out of pride, challenge the gods in their artistry. And they always get turned into something really gross and stuck head down in the dirt, or eaten by eagles, or, don't do that. Don't challenge the gods. You don't have to challenge the gods. They're fine. So everything you create will have a problem, more than one problem. It'll have something wrong with it. It'll have something that somebody says, I don't believe that for a second. Or something that somebody will say, oh, I hate that language. Or, oh, it's like I hate that character so much I never want to see that book. Oh, I hate drawing room novels. That happens to be my little bugaboo. And yet there will always be a drawing room novel that'll sucker me right in. So never say never, even as a reader, But as a writer, we're talking about imposter syndrome. It's like, how can I put something out there? And I wrote a novel about that. I wrote a novel called Paint It Black, which is about the struggle between permission and perfectionism in art, in creating art. So the punk rock idea of art is just make a sound, make a noise. You're here. Why shouldn't you bang away on a guitar or scream into a mic, and make a sound. Just make the assert that you were here, you walked here. And then the perfectionist, which is another character, is like, how can you How can you make me as a musician? The mother in Painted Black is a musician, classical pianist. And in the world of classical pianism, there is no upper limit to perfection, and precision and everything else. And it just is stifling her artist son. And his girlfriend's a punk rocker. Just says, make a noise, make a mark, do something. And all of art is moving between those poles, of how perfect versus how much permission. If you find yourself freezing up, like Ashley here, where you're afraid to send stuff out because it's not perfect, that's when you need to pull back, go towards punk rock. You have permission to make a mark. You have permission to get out there and put your flawed but a piece of work that you've done your due labor over and have made as good as you can get it. Why shouldn't you be someone who gets it out there? When I was starting to write, one of the things I enjoyed was reading really crappy books. Like maybe go to the library and get out some really crappy books, just some on the spinners. You can always see those well-worn, thrillers and romances and genre fiction, and just like not. They are what they are, and read that and go, wow, I worked harder than they did. Oh God, look at that sentence. I'd never let a sentence like that out of my office. And then you start seeing where, there is room for all kinds of writing, and that maybe your imposter syndrome has to do with perfectionism, as well as this, like, if I finish this book, then what happens to my life? I use this book. I've been in a difficult marriage where I spent a lot of my energy in my work, so if I if I didn't have the work, then, oh my God, I just have this. But think of it more as a job. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You don't get up and just goof around. You watch, daytime television. If you're a writer, you can use that time to investigate other possible stories. And maybe one of them will open up, become a longer story, and then maybe one of those will have the energy to continue. Is it something I've ever felt? Oh, yeah. Yes and no. I'm very impatient. I'm always struggling against my, there's the dread of what people will think. They're going to think this is a piece of shit. And let me tell you, this does not go away. As you get further along in your writing career and you do have books out, then you worry about your readers and how they're going to judge the new work, because it's not going to be the same. How many people, wrote to me when I wrote Painted Black and say, well, this is not White Oleander. They're outraged, like I was supposed to write the same book again. No, I'm not going to write the same book again. I already wrote that book. There are people who want to do the same thing over and over again, and write sequel after sequel. Well, doesn't interest me. It's like solving the same puzzle over and over again, doing the same crossword puzzle, solving it, and then starting over. No, doesn't interest me. So Painted Black was very different in certain ways. There were family resemblance. And then there were people who wanted more, contemporary work, or wanted me to finish. And people want all kinds of stuff. And they look at what you're doing, and they're always hoping for the same thing that they read last time, but a little different. And it's just like, when people start doing that, then they're copying themselves and putting out paler and paler, not always, but, often the formulaic thing starts, and they put out paler and paler imitations of themselves. and it becomes less and less interesting than the first book. Well, I'd rather see somebody just kind of kick over the traces and do something new and take their chances on what people are going to think. So so the question is, do I feel this way? Yes. Perhaps in some ways people feel more judged when they have a big book, a successful book. You'd think it would be the other way around, that they'd feel very confident and, write the next book just sure that everybody's going to follow them. But people don't follow you, people follow the book. So that, there's a reason why Harper Lee didn't, she wrote that Go Set a Watchman, the second book, but she did not publish it in her lifetime. She was so worried about what people would think of her next book because she had such a success with the first one, with To Kill a Mockingbird, that she didn't go back and publish the next one because she didn't want to upset her fans, which was a choice she made. I certainly wouldn't have made that choice in a million years. So, do you want to have a life of writing, or do you want to keep writing that same book? So imposter syndrome, a lot of people have that. There was just the LA Times Festival of Books, and I remember many a time being on panels and meeting brilliant especially the new writers, who just I feel like such an imposter, like I shouldn't be here. And, I'm such an egotist. It's like I was telling people I was a writer before I ever wrote anything, where some people don't tell anybody anything until it's published and on the bestseller list. Nobody knows they're a writer. And so they tend to have more of the imposter syndrome, that I don't belong here, somehow I sneaked in. People who feel like only a certain club of people get to be in the writer's circle, in the winner's circle, and that they don't have this and they don't have this. I don't have, the Ivy League education. I didn't do an MFA. I don't fit the categories, I feel like a complete imposter. That's what I get what is it, the AA motto of, fake it till you make it. Even if you feel like an imposter, you have as much right as anybody else there, anybody else at the party, to present a world that you have invented and say, yeah, I wrote that. That's my book. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you belong there as much as anybody else. So let me take a look at see if anybody had questions here. Christy says, it's terrifying. Good way to consider it. Some people don't like chocolate. Yeah. Some people don't like lyrical writing. Some people don't like hard-bitten writing. It's allowing people to have their taste, have their opinions, even if they're stupid and wrong. And not everybody has to like you. Not everybody has to like your work, as long as there are people who do. My mother, who was not a fount of wisdom by any means, but she said one thing that really stuck with me. Maybe a couple of things, but one thing she said was, I had a birthday party and about half the people I invited didn't show up. And I was mortified. I ran upstairs and threw myself on my bed and I was weeping, everybody hates me, And she came up and she's so pissed because the people who came were downstairs waiting for the party to happen. And I'm throwing this fit. And she said, Janet, why don't you pay attention to the people who came and forget those other people? It's oh yeah. What about the people who are going to like that book? Going to sit there and ditz around with it while they're waiting? They want your book. So anyway, there's that approach too. Well, let's see if there's anything here. So this idea of parking new ideas and getting back. Yeah, anybody who's working on a book, have you noticed how all these new ideas, very, very tempting and exciting things start happening? Get them down. Just write them down and keep working on what you're working on. Do not break off. So seductive. So Janine says, I had to stop editing my kids' book and move on to other projects. Oh, okay. Anything I can do to keep the work and creative work flowing. Yeah, there comes a time where something is done, and just, that's the time to send it out. If you're still dissatisfied with it and you've given it what you consider sufficient time, and you don't want to spend your life working on that one project, you can decide, I'm setting this aside. I've certainly set aside books that just didn't come together. They never came together. I worked and worked, and they just weren't getting any better. It wasn't coming together. Put them aside. But that's not what Ashley's problem was. Let's see what else. Let's see. Yeah, so ask me, see if there's any other questions. Otherwise, I'll make this a short one. I have one question that came in through the interwebs from Nathan. And Nathan asks, how do you create atmosphere in your writing? Atmosphere. So atmosphere is different than landscape. Landscape is what I'm seeing, and the light and the smells, the sounds, the focal length, what am I seeing up close? What am I seeing in the distance moving? But atmosphere is emotion on top of landscape or through the landscape. So the landscape has a feel to it. So right now it's slightly foggy, late afternoon, flickering shadows in the bamboo. The light is tempered. It's got a lot of haze in it, probably cloud layer. And I call it kind of an uncertain light. And there's wind, the wind's blowing through the palm. So there's a feeling of kind of a tremulous uncertainty about the landscape that if I was going to, if I was writing about somebody who is in a state of indecision or in waiting for some news, this would be good weather to create that atmosphere. But a wonderful exercise that I do, that I think came from The Art of Fiction by John Gardner, is to take the same landscape and have two emotionally different takes on that landscape. So the character will see, or the narrator will narrate using aspects of that same landscape to be unnerving or joyful, depending on the character state of mind. So one of them, say, this is like one house, just like picture a house, and then you describe the house, maybe some falling down house with, moss growing on the roof and pine needles and a broken couch on the front porch, and it's like, this is the house my lover lives in. Suddenly, our house is a very, very, very fine house, with the broken couch on the porch for the album cover, it's a very romantic idea. Whereas if you say, this is the house where my blackmailer lives, then you can have the same light, the same house, the same weather, but you have an ominous spin on it. So atmosphere is really about spin. What do you pay attention to, and what is it a metaphor for? What is it a visual correlative for? And what emotional state? So, the broken gate, what is that? What could that mean for if it's the lover, the broken gate, that he just jumps over that, versus the broken gate of the blackmailer, and you can hear it screaming as you push it open. So that's how you create atmosphere. It's something is creepy about this, or something is very warm and beautiful about that. And when you do the exercise, you don't say, this is the house my blackmailer lives in. It's just, the house was, this is not, you don't say my lover lives here. You just say, this is the house was sagging in the afternoon light, and the porch, that couch could have had the band posing on it with their cowboy boots and guitars. Any other questions before we tie this up? So Janine says she stopped editing her kids' book and moved on to other projects. It's great having other material on the go. Anything I could do to keep the work and creative work flowing, poetry, radio scripts, articles. Yeah, you just fill that space. If that's the one thing about writing, is that you can do it ill. We have several people who are disabled and ill who I see regularly on Writing Wednesday, and having something to do, it's such a blessing. Think if we were ballerinas, one bad knee just kills your whole creative output, or we don't need other people. It's not acting. It's something we can do in bed. We can do it anywhere. But it does provide such a wonderful structure. Just keep that structure. Keep doing it. So Ruthie was at the LA Times Book Festival. All kinds of readers, all kinds of people. It's like people want to give me a book. You want a book? It's like, no, I don't want a book. It's like, kiss this guy. You like guys? Kiss this guy. And it's like, I'll kiss that guy. There's something for everyone, and people will find your book, and don't feel like an imposter because you're offering. It's the imposter thing is like, who am I to offer my point of view? You're presenting a world. That world, people would not know about your world unless you wrote that and got it out of your computer, out of your typewriter, out of your office, out of your house, and into the mail, and into the hands of an agent, and into print. Nobody's going to see that world, and it will be a world lost if we don't get to see it. Alrighty, well, that looks like all. It's great to see everybody, and my apologies for being on the road earlier. So Point of View is my next workshop, May 13th, 14th, and 15th. So it's a weekend workshop on a grand tour of Point of View. And we're going to try them out and see how it feels to be Tolstoy. How does it feel to write like in the point, second person, first person plural, what all the possibilities of third person, and when did people start writing in third person? There's a whole historical thing that we're going to kind of recapitulate in this class. So hope you would enjoy that. Early bird special ends on the 30th of April, and so communityofwriters.org. All right, well, have a good week, and thank you for joining me for Writing Wednesday.